You promise your child they can grow up to become who they want to be. We know college is expensive, but upromise.com lets you save extra money for your child's future by doing the everyday things you already do. Save for college when shopping online or even on your weekly grocery store runs. Link any college savings plan with a free uPromise account for worry-free college savings deposited each month. Sign up today at upromise.com for a $30 welcome bonus. Start now at upromise.com.
Welcome to the Dope Black Dads podcast, a place where we are changing the narrative and having progressive conversations about black fathers, as well as creating a safe digital space for the community. This is the Dope Black Dad podcast. My name is Marvin Harrison. Today I'm very excited. I'm joined by mothers. Oh my gosh, we've let women onto our podcast today, and we hope that they join with respect and honor. We know how mothers can get at times a little bit tetchy, and the reason why we brought mothers into this conversation is because I'm furious, I'm livid, I'm disappointed. I feel as if mothers do not respect the full experience of dads, and we come out, we help create these wonderful human beings that you give birth to. And sometimes in fulfilling the destinies that you've always wanted for yourselves, we play our role in that, our 7.5 minutes, we bring that to the table. And then we sit there and support you throughout this amazing, miraculous journey while you give birth, and we carry things for you, and we fix things, and we create a house, and we go on this magic ride of making money. And you give birth. And then we are abandoned. We lose our best friends, the woman that we loved from our soul and our core. They disappear into this realm of like child first living. And we just sit there as substitutes on the wings, sad, hoping to reconnect with the woman that we love. And that happens for an extended period of time until you decide, or the child decides, that they don't need you anymore. And then you try to check for us. And by then, our depression has kicked in. Our sense of self has been diminished. And we are alone, and we end up going to Dope Black Dads group, sad, crying over our milk. Now, this is the experience that us dads understand, and you obviously are mothers. I'd love to hear how you're going to apologize and make up for this experience that you put us through.
Well, hi, Marvin.
Yes, hi, Marvin.
And just to say, hold on, wait 1 second. I'm not quite done. I paused, but I wasn't done. Not only have I brought in mothers, I've brought in two mothers who means so much to me. I met them like 10, 12 years ago. We were children. Out and about in the world, trying to be honest, And I brought them back. I got Nikita and Jade from Virtuous Mums to come and join us to apologize on behalf of all mothers for the treatment for dads. Which one of you want to go first on this apology?
I just want to say that is a perfect example of how men only think about themselves. That was a great introduction. Hi, guys. I'm Nikita from Virtuous Mums.
Welcome.
Jade?
Hi.
Are you going to apologise, or are you going to also defend?
I am not going to apologise at all.
Surprising.
I kind of feel like I am owed an apology after that introduction, but it's fine, we move.
So we know the experience of mothering, and my authentic view, I was obviously being facetious, but my authentic view is that parenting is very female normative, and there isn't very much room where dads naturally fit in, so you kind of have to use your elbows to create room for yourself. What has been your experience? Because I think, as a mother, it's better if you tell us than what I think. I'd love to hear what your experience has been as being a mother. I believe, Nikita, you're a single mother. Does that make any big difference?
I mean, yeah, I think it makes a huge difference, especially on this topic when we're talking about like dad envy. I think for someone who's single in my position, obviously I'm going to feel more of the weight of, that a lot more of the pressure and responsibilities on myself, just naturally because she's in my primary care. But I definitely do think that there is a whole movement, especially like with the mothers that we speak to and we connect with, where we just feel like men aren't doing enough. And, we can sympathize and understand that, the dads are obviously feeling like they're probably having to elbow their way in. But that's why I think the conversation has to be had, because there's mothers who are saying dads aren't doing enough, please help. And there's dads who are saying there's not much room for us to help.
It's quite interesting, actually, that you say that you have to elbow your way in. So it's almost as if you feel like you're kind of an outsider in this whole parenting realm, which is problematic to me because you're not an outsider at all. You are an equal role.
Thank you. Is this a part of your apology? Because I feel like I agree with you.
You can take it as an apology if you want, Marvin.
Thank you, I will.
No, but what I'm saying is, I feel like a lot of men do feel like that. And I think that's wrong, because automatically when you have that way of thinking, the responsibility then falls on the mum. And then there's literally no room for a mum to do anything else other than be a mum. And I feel like that gets overlooked a lot. Like, society tends to look at women as, if they're a mum, they should be able to work, look after the home and do all of these other things. And if they're just being a mum and doing nothing else, they're kind of, I don't know, it's like they kind of look down on. And being a mum literally is the biggest responsibility you can ever have. The biggest responsibility you can ever have. And there's no time off. And when the dads come in and say they have to elbow their way in, I just think that's kind of a bit of a ridiculous comment.
So you believe that mothers have a more important role than football managers like Gareth Southgate or aeroplane pilots, and
100%.
more important role?
100%.
Well, a mother had to raise them.
Exactly. 100%.
Okay.
What is more important?
I was just clarifying. I just wanted to understand, because Gareth Southgate did an incredible job. He led the mood of a whole nation, okay? And then a pilot looks after about 366 people every single flight. Some of them are in first class, so clearly important. I just want to make sure you believe that a single mother looking after a single child is more important than that. And I just think that's
their
right.
mum did a good job, didn't she?
Yeah.
If that's what they're doing.
Sure.
That's all I'm saying.
I'm interested to know your views, though, honestly, because there obviously is this, like, distinct difference on what society thinks that men should do, women should do. Like, there's just... automatically, women are the primary carers, right?
Yeah.
It's not to go too personal, but right. So you're here now with us.
Yeah.
Where is your lovely children? Where are they?
Amazing. This is a great answer. It's a great example of how men show up. I am in charge of this week, okay? Summer holidays, the evil summer holidays, which makes no logistical sense, no moral sense, because it doesn't add up to any form of calendar or the amount of days you're meant to have off work. So I have negotiated for my son to be in football camp, which is there until 3:30, and my daughter is at a play date, at a soft play, and I took her there this morning. So therefore, there is no mother in this dynamic. If I was a single father, my children would still be very well cared of. So it is possible, although slightly expensive. It's possible.
But that sounds like an achievement for you. Like, you're proud that you have taken your week and managed to...
Here we go again. Can a black man do one thing, okay? Do one thing that is actually being asked of him, of society, stepping up, and then he do it and say it with his chest? Why should I not be proud of my achievement of looking after my wonderful children?
Wait, stop. Asked of society. Do you not understand that we do this every day without being asked? And you are expecting to have some sort of praise for doing it on your week. So
this is where the divide comes in, okay? You deserve the praise, okay? Society doesn't praise you. That's not a daddy issue. That's a society issue. Then that's fine. If you have reached the Zen peakness of Buddhism, where you do not wish to be celebrated for the contribution to societies that you make, that is of your choosing. I, as a father who have not been taught parenting as a natural way of being, celebrate the achievements and the progression of myself as a man in male parenting. I am over the moon when I get something right and I get closer to my children having a deep affinity to me, and I'm not just seen as someone to make money. That moves me into a positive sense. So I accept all my praises, even the sarcastic ones from parents who look at me in the street and are like, "Oh, you're with your kids. That's great. Well done, you." I'll take those too.
But I feel like it's that kind of mindset that is causing so many women. I think it's like 80% of women or something who go through postnatal depression, feeling alone, feeling like they're having the burden of it, because we have men kind of perpetuating this idea that they should be praised or that they are stepping up. And the point that we're trying to get across is that we want it to be seen automatically as an equal, like, you know, you are 50% the providers and carers of these children that you help to create.
Can I just say something that I find interesting, that you think it's not a man problem, it's a societal problem?
Yeah,
that's interesting, because that's another example of a man coming away from responsibility and blaming it on something else. Once again, I feel like this is a repetitive.
Well, society is made up of men and women, is it not? But in the realm of parenting, women rule the roost. There is no, this is not new information. This is one area. I'm not saying in any other area. We know in business, men rule that. So if business has a toxic culture attached to it, it's attached to masculinity and how men see themselves in the world. If we talk about parenting, and it's very female normative, when the men are showing up, which is a generation now, so most men between, 35 and... I want to say 40, but there's a wave of men trying to show up and do something that historically has never been done before without very little support. I don't know if any of you have tried to sign up to paternity support from the government. You might as well stay at home and bet and gamble on football games to make that much amount of money. And so it isn't a particularly easy thing to adjust to in terms of structural support and emotional support in terms of men being designed based in capitalism and big dick energy and pay my bills culture. And then we turn up with our emotions being like, actually, we want to play a active role in our children's lives, in our wives' lives, and our partners' lives, and be better. That's a new phenomenon. That's not expected and understood. That's new.
This is sounding like shifting the blame onto other people
No.
again, like I just previously said.
I mean,
Okay.
that whole kind of explanation sounds to me like you're still, as men, getting the easier way out, because, we... just to kind of flip that on what you just said, in terms of like corporate structure, yes, okay, so men, I get it, you're not getting the paternal leave and stuff, but women then are not being appreciated in the workforce to get things like promotions because we're being seen as mums. Look, you can go and take your maternity. We need these men back. So we're kind of falling short of like need in the workforce. On top of that, you guys then are having your whole life, making your money, coming back to the home and being able to leave, whether it's social or work, whereas we're just losing our identity in whatever kind of business that we were in before, and then just being mums.
But who said that? Who said that we're celebrating the idea that men have to go out and make money? That's a trash role in society. It's the worst role in society. And specifically black men who are at the bottom usually of the socioeconomic ladder, if we talk about even in terms of masculinity, we're always on the front facing, hard grafting, my back aches, I got cancer from being on the underground type roles. Who says that that's better? Who says that that's the model of what humanity should be? If you ask me, I would prefer the balance of, a mother who is closer to the humanity, the people that they actually created, and going out and working. That's a much better existence. But unfortunately, because I do it. I do it now.
You're not
I do it right now.
You're not a mother.
I do it right now.
You can't play the mum role and say
I never said I'm playing the mum role. I said I would prefer
to play that role. But how could you say you prefer to play a role that you've never played and don't fully understand?
The female normative role in society is that women stay at home. Are you not aware of this? Is that new to you? That the female normative role?
What you're not understanding is you don't know what it feels like to play that role in society.
What the female normative role of the balance of being at home. All right. So first and foremost, we're not talking about 1955 where women stayed at home without a voice, taking promethazine to survive their day. We're talking about 2021 where mothers
are also expected to be business women, shaved, presentable.
Exactly. There's a lot more pressures.
Under the sun. There's a lot more. I wish it was 1950 where you paid for a maid and I had a nanny and I had a breast nanny.
And loads of women were also at home, so you had
the breast nanny was probably a slave.
Rather than being alienated with you and your child at home, expected to do all of these.
I heard about it.
So I the breast nanny would have been a slave, but I don't think we want any of that. So what I'm saying is that I'm not denying that it's not easy. One, we can't work in the realm of blame because that doesn't make any sense. Because if I blame men for something that women are co-conspirators in, then, there's so many intersectionalities attached to race, gender, class that interacts with what that experience may even be. So you just gave a white woman rich example of someone in an amazing big house in the southern states where their husband owns some land with a bunch of slaves, and you got a maid and a cleaner and a cook and a security then that's a very different dynamic. But in 2021, we're dealing with a completely different experience. We're dealing with this idea that actually we want everyone to have freedom of choice for their balance of working in the home, but men need to show up in the home more so. But there is no mandate that women have to be in the workplace. That's about freedom of choice and how you choose to live your life. If you choose to show up in a corporate world doing a job, then there's always going to be a compromise, and it is difficult. And so now there is a better understanding of what men have gone through historically in going into the workplace and excelling, and the toxic things that men created to survive capitalism. And when you're a black man, you are not sitting in an office. Historically, we are now sitting in an office on the top floor with like a prostitute over there and like, you know, a mistress in another part of town and a car over there. If you're driving the train, that's not your reality. That's a completely different context. So what I'm saying is, I get where you are, in the sense that there is a question about what men have contributed historically, and we have historically definitely not done enough. That is not under any question. What I'm saying is, now when we're at the table saying, how do we do this together? Because I want to do this with you. That's a question that we've got to ask, and what the new balance is. How do we address the balance of what you used to do versus what we're doing now?
I don't know if men are, you know, as in a majority capable of almost sacrificing so much of their personal life and so much of their personal time to purely raise a child 50-50. That's the thing. I mean, you, for example, do you think that you raise your children 50-50 with your wife? What's the responsibility percentage?
I think it's difficult to percentage. I think we show up at our skills at different times for different things. And also at different ages it's changed. So I think the first 2 to 3 years, it was very much heavily, it was almost like an 80-20 in terms of time with children. But that's decreased every year since they've got better. Now it's a lot closer to 50-50. We almost have a shared structure. It's still very much probably still 60-40 leaning on her, just because of the legacy of what happened in the first 4 years. But then I think there's a time down the line where it evolves out.
But I mean time that's spent contemplating, okay, where are they going to school? Or what, you know, just think like things, not just time spent with them, actually thinking about what needs to be done to raise these children.
I think this is the issue.
Oh, I think you're talking about mental load. Okay.
Yeah, it's the mental load as well. It's not just the actual physical spending time and showing up and doing what you need to do, because who makes the decisions in your house? Who structures everything? Is it you or is it your wife?
So I think long-term planning is me, and I think day-to-day planning is Nina. I think that's just, but that's not just down to gender, that's down to personality traits, as to, again, like how I think and how I see the world versus how she thinks and how she sees the world. It's not just literally men and women parenting. That's
I think that happens a lot, though. I think that happens in majority, especially women that we are. It seems to be the same kind of balance. And I just think that attached to that kind of mental responsibility, I think comes a lot of mental health issues and depression and, you know, feeling like we're not, you know, like we've lost almost our purpose and stuff. Just there's a lot of things that are tied to it.
I'll be deeply honest here. What I have noticed is a couple of things. One, the dynamic that we're discussing doesn't just land in a binary proposition. It is fluid, and there are some mothers who do make the money and men stay. There are all of those variables, but I appreciate the by and large sentiment of what happens. What I have noticed, and even just in observations in the dads groups, is that not every man can show up. Not every man feels comfortable showing up in parenting. I understand how much the programming of masculinity, but specifically black masculinity, is designed to keep you as far away from family and your children as possible. And then what's very difficult is the frequency which you engage to survive capitalism is the complete opposite frequency in which you go home to your family to. There was a very powerful interview with Will Smith and Kevin Hart. I don't know if you saw it on Red Table Talk. They spoke very, very clearly about coming in as a frequency, as a business leader or whatever, what you do, and the frequency of what you do in that realm, and then coming home and what is possible in that realm. And I have accepted that even for me, sometimes I have like a very instructional approach to everything, because I do it so often in a day. I come home and I'm like, all right, Blake, you do that. Over there. Ocean, you go over there. And Nina, I need help with this. Can you do over that? I've not come into her world and been like, actually, what do you need? What's the mood of the children? How are you feeling today? And get the energy before I come in with my things. But that's, again, a very strategic top line leadership role that I will probably be taking in an environment, ignoring the contribution of someone who's already been doing it on the ground day to day. But what I will say, though, is that I don't want to ever make it out as if the experience of men being out of the home is somehow the default or the better experience. I think it's the worst experience. I would say that the balance of being close to people that love you more than anyone else in the world is a much better experience, and then going out in the world and using that access to, fulfill your purpose. But the reality is, the way that, even if you will live in London, London isn't easy. So it's not a single income city where you can just be like, oh, I earn and that's it. It requires as much support as humanly possible. Otherwise, you're constantly being pushed in every single way in terms of finances and survival. It is not a nice experience. So the rules have to be pushed to the circumstance. And that's what destabilizes homes more than anything else.
I think it's interesting that you think that going out to work is a more difficult job than looking after the home. Because for me...
Is that what you took from that?
That you just said. Yeah.
Okay.
Is that not what you was getting at?
No. I'm saying it's a worst experience.
I think...
No one loves you in the workplace. I run my own company and no one in that company loves me as much as my children. And so I'm not saying it's not hard. I'm saying you spend your time around people who want something from you that is geared towards making money, for a purpose that ultimately never really gets fulfilled, versus being connected to people that you actually love and that love you too.
Well, maybe that's you personally, because I feel like a lot of men don't necessarily think like that, and they love their jobs and it's kind of like an escape for them. And as harsh as that may sound, sometimes being at home is too intense and you need that you need that break. As a mother, I feel like I need that break as well. I don't get that break currently. I'm on maternity leave. I will be on maternity leave for another 2 months if I go back to work. So for me, as far as I'm concerned, I work 24/7, but I work in the home. Just because I don't go out and bring any money in doesn't mean I stop working. I am, from when I wake up, from when I go to sleep, I'm working. Even during sleeping, I'm working, because Ziggy sleeps in my bed and I am still breastfeeding, and he comes and feeds whenever he feels like he needs to feed. So there is no time off for me whatsoever. So you saying that you didn't say it was more difficult, you said obviously you prefer to be at home with your family. Yeah, of course you would. But from the mother's perspective, when you are constantly on and in demand and you have zero breaks, you want to go to work. You want to have that break. You want to go and do something else to break that time up. So for you to say that you doing our job is preferable, I find it, like, to me, is a bit... You're overlooking the role of a mother here.
It's dismissive.
What they actually do. Yes,
okay.
Exactly.
And so, and this is a genuine question. In your redesign of your life right now, what would be the weighting between you being frontline parenting versus, would it be 50-50 at this point? Would it be something that you are preference to spend more time with your child at this early stages or not? I don't want to frame it in any way. Just what's your preference?
I think that not just like, okay, as in terms of time, at the beginning of you having a baby, of course, you're breastfeeding, you're going to have the majority of the time you spend with your child. But for me, again, it's touching back on the kind of the mental pressures and responsibilities. I think from the beginning, it would be a lot more easier on our kind of mental health if you were to take more responsibility. So things like pre-thinking, what is the baby going to need throughout the day? What needs to be put in place for the nighttime, rather than that all falling on our shoulders.
Yeah. Do you feel that there's just and Jade, I'd love to know your answer as well, but in addition, do you feel like there is just a difference in processing? Like, I think, for instance, for example, let's just say you gave your child to your father for 7 days. Do you believe you would come back to a child, or come back to a healthy child that's smiling, or would it be chaos, or what would actually happen? Do you feel they have the capacity to do it in some different way to what you would do it, but they have a capacity to do so or not?
I don't think I could come back to my child in 7 days without being called and spoken to throughout those days, asking me, how do I do this? What should I do here? And etc. etc. There's no way.
And without him feeling like he's done you a massive favour. This is the point. It's not about a dad coming and relieving us for 7 days. Yeah, that would be lovely. It's like going on holiday, but it's about just the constant 24/7 responsibility. Whereas I can look at you and say, what's Ray eating today? And you don't give me the look like, what you cooking?
Yeah, I have to say I agree with you, Nikita. It is this thing with a lot of dads, they seem to think by looking after your child, their own child, for a few hours or a day or whatever, or switching some things around in their schedule, they're doing something to help you. And it's like, well, no, not really. This is your child as well. This is your responsibility too. Why does it have to be looked at as a favour?
So I have this question then. if the way that a child is raised is based on your perspective and you taking the lead and the charge, at any point a dad coming in, if he's not involved in the design of it, he's adopting your processes. So then he does need to call you. The child is now adapted to your way of being. So this is where this is a slight difference. So with my 3 and 5 year old, you know, when I was away for a period of time and I came back, there had been new developments in terms of how they want to eat, the things they do like to eat. And, you know, my son came up to me and was like, that's not healthy food, Dad. We can't eat that. And I was like, oh, okay, cool. That's the new framework that you've decided. So we had to adjust. But that has been birthed out of how he was raised by his mother, which is fine, by the way. But we have to learn that on an intimate scale. Unless you're going to write it down for me iteratively about every single element, there is a transference, and it's normally just communication and conversation. When I'm doing this is how I do it, and this is why I do it. This is how they've responded. This is the patterns that this child has now developed as a result of how we've parented it. I feel like it's not always just about like us slotting in as if we're like, we don't lead. When men lead in parenting, it is vastly different to how a mother would do it. And until that's completely normalized and centralized, and for an example, when I play with my children, I have them hovering and levitating in the air. They're very likely to get a suplex. They're very likely to be chokeslammed at some point. Boy and girl, I have no preference. I don't discriminate between my chokeslams. And that may not be a way, that's definitely not a way that their mother interacts with them. And I know that, but I'm also aware that like, that's my way of connecting. That's my bonding. If you think about the wild, the lion licks his child, that's my way of licking my cub and just playing with them and being tactile. And so we have to be able to create space for both of our style of pairing and have communication about what it actually takes. But then to just be like, and I'm gonna make one last example before I don't want to filibuster. But let's just say that you design how we eat or how the child eats, and then particularly on a day that you're tired, or a day that you're frustrated, or a day that the child's being difficult, and you're like, you know, I need you to do it. Now, if we have a conversation about, hey, I'm tired, I need you to take over food today, that's a different question to what's the child eating today, and you just throw me the ball, and I'm like, I don't know. That's a very, very different scenario. So how we're communicating matters. If it's posed as a question that gives me agency to take control, I might even screw my face and be like, but then I have to find an answer.
Marvin, this is where I keep getting frustrated, because
I don't want you to get frustrated, Nikki.
We're using the terms, I need you to step up. I need this. I need this from you. When men start appreciating that the role of a mum is an equal job, so she's working just like you were working, the responsibility of the kid becomes an equal responsibility for the two of you. So we need to get that out of the mindset that I need you to feed them today, because that's the whole point. Yes, it might be her role that she feeds and she cooks them and she cleans them, but that's a job in itself. So where does it become the equal responsibility? How do we get to that point?
Because in any dynamic of looking after any child or any joint project, wherever the joint project is, someone takes a particular role. And if it's by proxy, by the fact that you are at home or you are breastfeeding and that's primary caring, then that is what happens. But there are men who can do it. So it's not like it's impossible, but then that needs to be understood from the beginning. We've never really had a generation where we've actually tried to fully co-parent at the same time. Mm-hmm. Even the modern concept of marriage has never really been understood in modern terms. Marriage is an outdated concept. Co-parenting is an unknown concept because it's never actually been done as co-parenting. It's been done as mothering, and I'm a dad because I'm a man.
But I think where the issue lies is that why do we have to ask? Why can you not offer?
No, but it's a social shift though. It has to be discussed. It's impossible to go from historically. It's like women in the workplace. I can't, if I adjust. Like but we've all been raised on those values.
It's not relevant here though.
No, it is because we've all been raised on those values.
Live in that world
anymore. What were you raised under? I need to bang something. What were you raised on then?
No, but I'm saying you're using it as an excuse for why
it's not an excuse.
But that's the way it's coming across, almost as if you're like, well, this is how I was raised, so how am I supposed to know how to do
No. This is how I'm raised, yeah? I'm saying everyone's come from the same programming. My programming was James Bond, played on a Saturday afternoon where you slap a girlfriend onto the bed. 2 minutes later, you're having a cigarette and you're like, how was that for you, baby? That's clearly not appropriate in 2021. So our programming informs how we see the world. So without a discussion, And this only can happen on a level between you two. It can't happen on a societal level because I don't know your life like that. So we had to have a conversation from the beginning. And every 2-3 years, we have to go back and reestablish the conversation of how do we do this? Because every time we automate based on what we think we've seen on TV and film or in a book, it doesn't work in practical senses of life. There are so many factors of at play. Like, I know I'm in a better position to make money. So if I then abandon my ability to make money to prioritize, look after children, there's an inequality in terms of our ability to have income and survive in London. So we have to find new solutions. That doesn't mean the automatic answer is I must work and she must sit at home, but we need answers. And I'm saying without that conversation, it's not possible.
Is the reason why men are in better positions to make money because women hold the majority responsibility of
but also,
absolutely,
I don't think that that's a problem. It is not an issue if somebody has to take the lead, being the primary carer. That is not a problem. That's always going to be the case. More times it will be on the woman because biologically they carry the child, they breastfeed the child. It just goes like that. However, the issue is the fact that men seem to see that as an excuse. They just leave the responsibility on the woman. They don't feel like they need to interfere or offer or do anything because as far as they're concerned, it's like, well, you're the primary carer. When you need me, you let me know. And
I agree that's possible. I agree that's very much possible and probably highly normative in the experience. But what I'm saying is that coexisting with a group of men for 3 years, I have heard the narratives. And whether you accept them or not, it's their narrative. It's their experience as men trying to understand how to navigate this new space that has never really been discussed. And society and government play very little role in supporting the shift in how we're trying to change of men's contributions to the world. So I'm saying that right now, if I had a choice, I would like to be able to be moving out of this idea because even the emotional like understanding of caring for somebody is like mind-blowingly different. Like as kind as I can consciously be, there's an intuitiveness to carrying a child and caring for someone you've carried that I would never ever understand. So everything I'm doing is academic. It's academic and on the job. And it's like ready to be fallible. So I may shoot my shot. It may not work out. I may make my child slightly traumatized and slightly worse. But someone's got, as a generation of men, have to go through the barrier of figuring it out on behalf of other men. But also there does need to be a dialogue, and this has to happen in your home, preferably without Black Twitter or any Twitter actually next to it, to make sure that we understand between us, like what actually, based on who we are, not just how society has made us, but who we are, can we contribute to the mission of co-parenting?
I do think this is going to be one extreme to the other, though. I do think that there is a choice in, though, how much you put in to have that experience. Like, there's men out there who actually buy a pregnant bump the whole time their woman's pregnant, and they experience pregnancy with them, and they're emotional with them, and they're going through all the antenatal classes.
But you guys don't date those men anyway. Sorry, I'll be as damn facetious. I'm so sorry. You wouldn't date that guy.
We don't know. But the point is that it's definitely a choice, and I feel like that's the point. That a lot of men, given the choice, as much as you say you would love to be at home and yes, it's all, butterflies and rainbows, I think given the choice, you would keep that aspect, home life, work life, social life. Whereas where do women get the break? Where does your wife get the break? That's what I want to know.
Listen, so this is two things, yeah? And I have to not speak on her experience specifically, but I will say these two things, yeah? Firstly, is that I have done extended periods of time on my own. I've done months, weeks at time where I am on the front line. Absolutely, I've enjoyed it way more that way than I have the other side of things. But then I'm saying I have specifically been making that a mission of mine to have that connection and affinity. That's not the norm. I'm aware of that also. But I personally, I'm down for that. I feel like I've had a much better experience connecting to my children than I have going out in the world, building businesses, making money. For what? So my children, every time I buy them something, they don't even care or understand. What they really want is my time. And if I can't give it to them, then I'm failing. So I have made my life possible so that I have time and I can make decisions to be able to do that. I think the second thing is, we also have to acknowledge here, is that some of the negative female programming, which has all been universally understood by everyone, things about making it like your destiny to be a mother, and if you're not a great mother, you're not worth anything. All of that communication into women has created some of these conditionings, because it's like if a man doesn't make money, he's nothing. So what does a man go and do to become something? not every man, not every scenario, and not every woman and not every mother, but these are the conversations that happen. And so we step into this in such a powerful way that it becomes your destiny, bigger than it is about harmony and co-parenting. It's about, I need to be an amazing mother for me, or because my mother wasn't amazing, or because my mother didn't think I was a good mother. There's so much it's emotional and psychological baggage that is associated with parenting, that actually the first thing that anyone should be doing is going to audit themselves and spend some time in the psychological care and therapists and do some work on understanding what moves them, what motivates them, what hurts them, what doesn't hurt them, and why. And that doesn't happen enough. So we go into this realm of co-parenting from two disconnected people trying to do a mission that has been designed in a yesteryear. It's not relevant for today.
I'm just taking in what you're saying. Yeah.
Look, and I say and the last thing I'll say, is that for Dope Black Dads, when we launched, the first thing that amazed me is that there were more men dying for this than I ever would imagine. I just thought it was me and a couple of others. When I made the group, I actually didn't even want to make it because I was like, none of these people are going to give a toss about what I'm saying. Everybody cared. Everyone was like, oh my God, man. Like that, even just to be told that the bad level of what you're doing is like, well done for like getting this far. We understood what it took to get to the point where you stand there and you're dealing with like your choices. Like you're dealing with your choices, because the reality is, like, if your relationship breaks up, these are your choices as an adult. It hurts. Do you know what I mean? Like, this isn't like, yes, you can blame, but it hurts. You made a choice that has now impacted your child. They don't have the presence that they need to have. They don't have the healthy environment that you envision. You've now got to go back and like represent yourself. And some dads, and I'm not saying that this is not fair or fair, but some dads don't have access. So when they're going to the front door, there's one guy telling the story of him knocking on the door, and like he used to wake up at 7 a.m., go to his child's house at 7:30 and send their gifts through the letterbox while the mum was still sleeping. That was the only way he could get contacts. He used to whisper to her through the letterbox. I almost cried on the podcast. I was like, "Rah, that's kind of deep." I don't live that, so I don't know it intuitively, but I can hear what he's saying and be like, wow, there are men who really want it. But this is why I say the dialogue has to get healthier. It cannot be men versus women, because at the end of that discussion, nobody will have an answer. We might feel a little bit better where you think I've heard you more and I've heard you more, but there will be no answer about how we actually do this. And that's what I really care about, to be honest.
No, definitely. I completely agree. It definitely can't be men versus women. This is, you have to really try and understand both perspectives. So everything that you're saying is very interesting, because obviously I don't have a male perspective. I only have my own perspective. But what I do struggle with is I feel like a lot of the time, men and women are having these conversations, but they're not understanding each other. And that's where we get the problem.
And why do you think that is? Because I have a view on it, but like, I'd love to hear why you guys think that is.
I honestly, there's so many reasons. I mean, I think a lot of people are very much about themselves. So it's hard for them to fully understand what another person is saying to them, because they still feel like their problem is bigger than theirs. So that problem automatically will get dismissed.
And adding to that as well, I think it's, you have mums groups, you have Dope Black Dads, which is something amazing. I think it needs to be out there for dads to have a place to connect. But it's like conversations like these when mums are meeting the dads. We as mums, especially in our mums group, we're just hearing it from a female perspective, and likewise with the men. So I think it's really important that you kind of have these crossovers so we can hear each other's sides on it, really.
100%. And I do think that there's a big difference between men and women. Obviously you do Dope Black Dads, but I find a lot of men don't talk to each other about these kind of situations, whereas women do, because we need that support system. We have to have each other, otherwise we go crazy, because we do have that mental load. We have to offload somehow, whereas men seem to just keep it all to themselves, run it all through their heads, and just there's no outlet. So they don't.
I think a lot of toxicity has been created through men's inability to speak. And I also have a deep belief that people don't listen to men when they talk about their feelings. No one does. Men or women, no one does. And we've had conversations about men who were talking to their partners or people in their lives about wanting to commit suicide, and they basically got an Instagram quote thrown at them. Do you know what I mean? Like, and because it's almost this belief that men will be okay, and it's like, if you just keep going, and by the time a man has told you that he's struggling, he's already gone too far. is already darker and deeper than you could ever imagine. And I think sometimes we just believe that because men are appeared to be running the world, but that's such an idea based in whiteness that doesn't connect for black men. We are the last recipients of the beneficiaries of masculinity, and we end up being the most toxic parts of it because we're chasing it so hard, because they make it seem like it's really accessible, that you can go out and get £250,000 investment in your business idea. From who? So I'm never going to like discredit. This is never a like, I think the culture of men versus women is one just for entertainment. Do you know what I mean? It's a bit like CNN or Sky News or Good Morning Britain, where they just put two random opposing opinions and just say like, go at it. But the reality is that it starts in the home with a complete blank sheet of paper. And it's like, what's possible for you? And it's like, if you say in the conversation of the blank piece of paper that actually out of the 7 days a week that we care, I need to know that for 3 of those days that you're going to take on the primary care, and we can do weekends, and you're going to have to adjust how you work during the week, or you're going to have to take an evening, you're going to have to do a night. But everyone's life is so different that you need to actually describe it from scratch from the very beginning. It cannot be anything that's off the shelf, because none of that was built for this era. Like we're talking about an era where women have agency, power, a say, in a way that they've never had before. So if I come there with my concept from off the shelf about what women should be doing, which is why every time I see a debate about man must pay my bills, women must cook and clean and suck my dick, sorry for the language, I'm just like, I can't engage, because there's nothing real in that. And also, no one wants to suck your dick after being with you for 2 years. It's like a whole thing. It's just like, it goes away. I'm very sorry for saying that out loud, but that's the first thing to go when people are too comfortable. They hate it.
Well,
so
I'm tired from breastfeeding. Can I ask a question, Marvin? No, like genuinely, do you think there's kind of a disconnect with men, or like, okay, so I'm completely agree that there's a lot of pressures on men, like in society, like I'm guilty of it, like, you know, men to be breadwinners and successful, and yeah. Do you think that there's kind of a disconnect in the household because you kind of just feel like as women, we're just not getting it? We're not understanding do us women understand the pressures that you are going through as being dads, being present, and also being successful?
I'll say no, but I'll contextualize it with this, is that this is the first moment probably in history where being a woman per se isn't as directly as a violent experience as it historically has been. This is a moment where we can say women have collectivized in a powerful way. So there is no way to just like do something to a woman and it be okay. Like it's something that will go around in circles. People will be aware. There is a lot more education in terms of things like consent, sexual misconduct, power dynamics. There is a condition that's probably better than any time previously in history for women. And so in this moment, for men to come in and be like, what about me though, is slightly disingenuous. Because we didn't create the conditions for your improved environment. We didn't stand by you and be like, you know what? We've noticed something. We're going to the town hall. We're going to get some laws changed and we're not going to have this anymore. It was women doing that. So this is the fruit of your labor. So for us to say that at the point of your own discovery of your own power, your own agency, your own voice, to be like, yeah, but you know, men need this now on top of the things that you've just discovered for yourself, I think it's slightly disingenuous. What I will say is though, is that it actually starts on a very lower frequency of just the people that you actually have direct proximity to. And you improve those relationships. I can't create space for every black woman on earth. You know, even though we are a leader, I'm the founder of a movement. I just don't have the human capacity to look after tens of thousands of people around the world. So I start with my immediacy. I make sure my immediacy is strong, whatever guys that is currently in. And then from there, they hopefully will pass those values on to theirs. And whatever I have left, I give. That's my commitment. But I can't say more than that. I can't sit there and be like, I'm guaranteed to. I just think those things are unworkable because life pushes you to be active, present, and like make money and, you know, to be on for so long. We don't really have the capacity to do more.
I hear you. Why do you think then it's such like a more current thing that men are expecting women to also hold it down, have successful careers, like not just be mums? I don't think it's like accepted anymore, well, from my experience, for women to just be a mum anymore.
Yeah, but I think it's two things. I think we've been told and we listened. I think we've also, you know, you can't afford to just have a single income unless the guy does very well. And even then there are just, you know, but also I just think like I think we just haven't listened to each other in terms of like what's possible and what's not. Again, the idea that a woman should is a concept immediately, because you would just tell me and I just listen to you. So, and even when we talk about dating is still very, very conceptual, which is why it doesn't work. No one actually listens. No one presents their true self until down the line when they've already got what they really wanted, which is probably some cuddles and some sex and some Netflix days. But that's not workable. So coming out the gate with deep authenticity, like, look, this is what I can offer to anybody right now. Like right now, you know, my kids are absolutely a prime priority. There's no space around that. My purpose is so loud. Everything else is a byproduct. Everything else is a consequence of those two things. If you believe that you should be the number one thing above those two things, there is no conversation to be had. But not everybody's willing to have that level of authenticity, because authenticity can be quite lonely. You know, when keeping it real goes wrong. It's like, it can be quite lonely, but it's the only way. And I won't compromise for anything. I don't have a desire to. I don't believe in my own unhappiness to make anything look good, sound good. I just don't, it won't move me enough.
Guys, as we get older, we all start to notice minor changes in sexual performance. It happens, but you can stop Mother Nature. Whether you're just starting to develop erectile dysfunction symptoms or are suffering from chronic ED, call Metro Men's Health. Skip the pills and injections. They're only temporary and lose effectiveness over time. Metro Men's Health treats the root cause of ED, lack of blood flow, so it works long term. Metro Men's Health uses the most advanced and clinically proven wave therapy on the market to actually repair aging blood vessels and restore them to a younger you. Get your spontaneity and your confidence back with safe, effective treatment from Metro Men's Health. Visit metromenshealth.com or call 833-687-0700. Don't let ED get worse. Call Metro Men's Health today. 833-687-0700. 833-687-0700.
From your experience of Dope Black Dads, like, what's the kind of majority voice? Like, what are dads saying? What are, you know, like, what's the kind, do you know what I mean? Like, in our group, I could probably list some things that, you know, that we talk about, but like, what are they seeing? Are they not being heard? Is that the reason they've come to the group? Do they need more support?
Look, I think it's the thing I mentioned where they're aware that this is a moment for a reckoning for women, and I wouldn't say our feelings need to be discarded, but they may be secondary to a greater purpose. And I think at the same time, there's a certain amount of accountability a man can hold a man to that a woman can't. And there's a certain level of understanding about your lived experience that just comes from being a man that you wouldn't get from anywhere else, including your mother, even from a generational divide. You know, a group of men between 27 and 45 know more about each other than anyone else would ever know. And so it just requires, you know, a space, which is why our rules are so strict about what you can and can't talk about. We don't do anti-women. We don't do anti-whiteness. You can't sit there and talk about Rihanna's latest whatever. No sport, no music, none of that. Just you.
Because I was just about to ask, like, how do you kind of avoid, the almost mum bashing or like the negative kind of...
You're just not allowed. It's your work. Like, the mother of your child is your choice. So it's your work. And there's a guy in our group, Darwood, we call him Black Jesus. He's like... He's in his mid-40s, but there's such themes that he developed really early on that he put into me that I just made very, very clear. Like, we have to take accountability for the choices we make. And it even goes down further down the line. If you have unprotected sex with a woman and you have a child, it's your responsibility. There is no like, yeah, but I didn't want it. Because the act of what you have created is off of your own doing. The two things are not disconnected, and men make really bad choices and then try to step away from the ownership of what it is that they've created. It's not possible. So if you have a baby mother that you don't get along with, that's your creation. You've got to choose the people in your life better. And if you haven't done that, then that's still your labor. That's the cost of your inauthenticities and your bad decisions. And yeah, we can have empathy for them. You know, there's a guy that I know who's had 6 children with 5 different mothers, and he didn't understand what he was doing until his 5th child. He said he was trying to recreate a family that he didn't have for himself, and I didn't know that, Marv. I was like, yo, that's not the narrative of like, oh yeah, he's fucking everyone, which is what the lazy, like, and then everyone just throws that around where there's a guy inside who's hurting. And I'm not saying it doesn't happen for women also. I'm just saying from a man's point of view, there's a guy who's hurt, who's trying to repair from his family that he didn't have. And so he's trying to recreate it and failing badly. And then at the end of it, he's now got this dynamic of four women and 6 children. 4 of them have no communication with. He's created the legacy 4 times over. And he's now, but I said, that's your work, that's your labor. You're going to have to abandon every other mission to try and repair that relationship with the mother of those children and your children to be present in their lives, because you've got to be able to answer your question. I think the biggest problem has been that we haven't been able to go to our parents and ask all the questions that we needed to understand how we were raised.
Yeah.
Most of them have shut themselves off and not want to have that conversation, but we need to know so we can move on and not recreate it for our children.
I definitely think that there is an issue with men communicating how they actually feel in a lot of situations. They always put on like a front or like have this guard up and don't like to express real feelings for why they do things. And I feel like there's no reason for a man to be like that with a woman ever, because women are very understanding and very open to hearing feelings. I know you said earlier that women do not listen to men's feelings, but that's not true. Like if you sit and have a conversation with a woman, they will listen to you. Maybe not all of them, but yeah, that's what we do. Like we want to hear that.
I can honor that statement from you. If you say I can come to you with my emotions, I will come to you with my emotions. But also understand, is that the normative of programming is like what women or feminine energies feel safe around is alpha masculine energies. So when you tap into your beta frequency, it can sometimes be a clash and a disconnect. So the person that you may share with may not actually be your partner. It may have to be a friend. But that's what I'm saying. You don't know what the relationship has been created on.
Why do you think women are into this whole alpha male thing?
Sorry, so when I say women, I meant feminine energy, because the energy is more important than the gender. So I'm saying not all women are feminine like that, in that frequency. And so
masculine energy,
and so what you're looking for is sexual polarity. You're looking for polarity in who you are. That's what it is. It's the yin and yang of each of us. And so sometimes you get with someone where that yin and yang doesn't exist, and it does exist until you tap into a different energy source. So when I became a lot more aware of my emotional journey and processing, like not everyone around me could handle that capacity. I'll never forget when I told a group of people that I was getting married, and everyone was just like, "Oh, cool, man. That's sick." I was like, "What?" I told people I was having a child, and they were like, "Wow, okay."
Nina must have told her girlfriends that she was getting married. Oh my god.
There was probably a whole different, do you know what I mean? Yeah. And so I understand not everyone can process. And so, every couple of years I realize that as I evolve, those people there's no space for them in where I'm going. And I've had to understand that and not try to drag the people who historically were in my life into my future. Like, I'm going somewhere. I'm on a journey. I've been on one for about 6-7 years. And in that is the most painful shit I've ever had to face. It's horrific. I understand why men run from that shit. But the answer on the other side is so much better. Like, whatever I was, probably when you guys met me, I couldn't tell you what my experience was. I have no idea. If you told me, Marvin, you said this to me, I would have to just say yes, shrug my shoulders. I don't remember. I'm saying at that point, I don't even know. I was a concept of a man. I didn't know what a man was. And now, as I evolved into a different space, I'm a lot more flexible and open. I feel like I am more closer to myself. I know myself. I know what I'm willing to do, not willing to do. I know what I'm capable of. And so therefore, I just move differently. And I refuse to be burdened by people's shortcomings. So, but that's new. That's not even long-standing for me, let alone for many men.
Yeah, mature. Yeah, you definitely sound like someone who's mature and you kind of, had a lot of self-reflection. I don't know if it was therapy, talking to your wife, whatever it is, but you seem to kind of grasp the kind of balance a little bit more than most people we speak to. So there's obviously an issue that's going on, isn't there, where you guys think differently, we think differently. What conversations do you have in your household to kind of make sure that women aren't feeling dad envy and feeling like, we're not listened to?
It's a conversation with yourself, And I think before you can even speak to anybody about anything, you've got to go through some experiences on your own. And so too many of the ideas about myself and marriage and relationships, parenting, the world came from traumatic events, like negative experiences. And so I realized that I didn't really have a view on the world that was healthy. It was all about how to protect, preserve, make enough to be important or relevant, or, it was all these ideas that none of them were centered in like peace. And like, so the problem is you create a world, an inauthentic world based on bad ideas. And then you have then you meet somebody with those ideas and they might have similar ideas yourself. And then you try to smudge these two things together at all costs. And then at the end of it, you're guaranteed to blame the other person for the outcomes. Well, look, a reflective person will tell you that immediately it's my own. Everything that annoys me in the universe is my own doing. Either I let it get to me or I created it. These things don't exist. Otherwise, it's boundaries. Like,
it's the most relatable thing that has been said in this whole podcast for me anyway.
Oh, I appreciate that, but it's just boundaries for me. My new thing is I had a lot of authenticity, but I didn't have boundaries. So I allowed everybody very close. I allowed everybody to have a view and to feel like they should have a say. But the reality is I've always known where my journey is. And so it was inauthentic to give them that space because they were never going to be able to hold it. And I was never really going to be held accountable to their perspective on my existence. I know who I am and I know where I'm going. So, but that came at a cost. So everyone that was around at that particular time, I had to create a really strong boundary with. Like, I developed a relationship with my block button. Because people were adamant of telling me who I was and what I should and shouldn't be doing, what was possible for me as a person. Like, I'm not a concept for you to tell what to do. Like, no one can, by the way. I've been ungovernable for the longest time, but I was ungovernable in an unhealthy sense before, and now I know why I'm ungovernable. It's two separate things. So I understand what you're saying in terms of like where men are and where the conversation should lie, but the conversation starts with yourself. And the second you realize your life doesn't work, i.e. when you attain everything that they told you should attain and you're still not happy, that's when the journey begins. And I think it's quite a beautiful experience, although there's some days where I've definitely cried my ass off. I've cried more in the last 5 years than I have probably in my whole life previously. So, it's required.
And what about the women who unfortunately are having children with men that aren't going to reflect? There's so much men out there who don't have this kind of healthy, self-reflecting, open mindset as you do. So do we just shun them? Do we just say, do you know what, raise your children?
Even if you do reflect and you have done all of that part, you still have to come together.
No, but you come together in a different understanding. So, when we talk about women who are with these men, it's their work to understand what type of man that they need to be with based on who they actually are and where they're going. That's a completely different conversation. And so when we talk about accountability, that's none of my business. Like if someone's got with me and misunderstood me and made me out to be something that I'm not, I told you who I am. I showed you who I am.
No, I completely disagree with what you're saying there.
But then you're removing agency from yourself to have control over the decisions that you make.
I don't think that's okay to turn around and say and do something like that, because at the end of the day, if you already have a partner and you have children with them, you can't turn around and be like, you knew who I was when I met you. You're meant to grow together as a couple, and you have to make sacrifices so that your relationships work. That's how relationships work. It's not as simple as I've self-reflected on myself. I know who I am. I know what direction I'm going in. And if you don't like it, then that's your problem, not mine.
But all right, let me introduce the idea, softly, that it is on the basis that you have to have a connection, a disconnect from attachment. You can't be attached to the idea that we are together, so you must. That is the easiest way to destroy everything. But because the reality is, understand this, if you're dealing with someone that's honorable, yeah?
Right.
If we're three honorable people on a call and we decide to do something together, you don't really need a contract. You don't really need to submit anything. You told me that you're going to do what you do. You told me what you're going to do, what you're going to do. You uphold that to the best of your ability. What I'm saying is that not enough people have even started the question. So already the contract is based in inauthenticity. It's based in this idea that you believe that I must, and I believe that you must, to create a concept. I honor you because I honor you.
That ability to detach is what also leaves a lot of men able to go, right, the relationship's broken down, or you're not understanding my purpose, and the responsibility of the kids is yours.
But it's really not that black and white. Like, this is the difference between men and women. Men are black and white. Women do not see things as black and white. There's grey areas. And it's really easy for you to just say one thing and follow that and then flip it and do something else. Whereas women do not.
No, but that's completely breaking your word. No. That's completely breaking your word. That's nothing to do with integrity. If I tell you that I'm going to be committed to you and then one day I just don't commit to you and I do something over there, we've never had a conversation about it, we've never re-established anything, that's something completely different. That's you just being an arsehole. We don't normalize that.
Time to self-assess, and a year down the line you've worked out your purpose and who you are, Marvin, and this is who I am, and I'm going to be block. How does that fall into place when you have a relationship and children involved?
Because you have to redesign it. Like, how much are you willing to abandon to survive a concept? How much are you willing to give away? How much pain are you willing to go for?
What you're saying is really rigid.
It's not. It's actually the
way you're
opposite.
speaking is
It's the
really
complete
rigid,
opposite.
and it can't be like that. It has to like flow. Like people are constantly changing. Humans are constantly evolving. You will never ever, what you say today is going to be completely different to what you say in 5 years' time, based on your experiences. So for you to turn around and say that when you said this is how I am, you know who I am when you meet me. It's like it's a contract that you've decided when you meet each other. That's not the case, because you are not going to be that person for the whole time that you're with.
And that's what I mean. So I'm saying
forever evolving.
I'm saying in that evolution, at the point of my evolution, yeah, as long as it's authentic, i.e. it's not just a phase that I'm trying to go through to like abandon something else. This is why you need to be in tune with yourself. This is why therapy is important. This is why spirituality is important. But if your evolution is authentic, you have every right to go back to the person that you've had an agreement with and re-establish the boundaries of what is possible in your relationship. If you sit there based on the old rules of what it was, you're being unauthentic on an ongoing basis that will not sustain. So I'm not saying, and we're not talking about extremes here where you just like, to be fair, it doesn't really matter, because the whole point of it is a fluid redesign constantly. Every 2-3 years, it's had to be redesigned, what me and Nina's doing. We have to redesign it. Because if I base it on who I was when I was 26, none of this would make any form of sense. So I'm saying I'm open to your evolution too. So the idea of going back to work, not going back to work, the idea of changing your career at the financial cost or not, the idea of wanting 4 kids instead of 3, all of those things have to be an authentic conversation, because how much you abandon matters.
We're talking about like nuclear families though, but would you agree, obviously, just from your perspective, talking to men, I don't know if there's a lot of single men in there or men that are separated from their wives, but there is this kind of like thing that when a man and woman separate, the onus is on the woman for the responsibility of the children.
Absolutely, but the problem is that the courts and the system and the law makes that normative anyway. So
you're arguing with that. I think you're pretty happy.
No, we're not arguing with it, and that's a fair point to make. But the men who are trying to argue with it go through hell to try and re-establish those rules. But the law immediately defaults that if a child of a particular age, that there is not even a question. You can put all the money up in the world, you will be primary carer unless you break these particular rules, which are like, you're a crackhead in the middle of nowhere. Like, otherwise it just goes to you. What we have to figure out though is how we can have a non-court based understanding of accessibility. But also it depends how your relationship broke down. Like if someone cheats on someone or is punching them in the face and you don't feel safe, then you can't just be like, yeah, come in my house and look after my kids and it be fluid. It has to be rigid. It has to be predefined. It may even need to be legal. It may need to be something written down that we can actually hold to account. You may have to have neutral places to meet. This is why the layers are important.
But let's talk about a completely non-violent, civil relationship that's broken down for whatever reason. Those men there still will shed responsibility. And I'm going to say it as boldly as that.
But that's just too broad. We're just making all men absent. I have first-hand accounts of that not being so. I am saying that there is still way too normative of a relationship of men not showing up. Then we need to do that more. But I understand why, but that doesn't make it okay. I just have an understanding why. I understand what we need to do to make that a different conversation. But it's going to be a very, very long and slow journey, as most changes. But what I'm saying is that even more importantly, is that if you design based on however you've broken up, and however your relationship is to now, what is healthiest for the children, and people, if you are in a relationship that's broken down, you should have a relationship with a counselor. They should be sitting there talking about how to create a healthy way of doing things, and it will help you. These things that we always believe should be in us. Like you love someone passionately, they break your heart, and then you're meant to figure out how to be the perfect co-parent, co-mother tomorrow. Otherwise, you're a horrible person. It's impossible. Your emotions are leading half of the stuff you're dealing with. It hurts when people break your trust or betray you in some way. It's difficult. So your processing isn't always healthy. So having a third party who's not a friend or a mother or someone or a father or anyone else around, just a neutral person who can hear your accounts and say, this is how you can find healthy ways of dialogue. But that takes time, money, space, and awareness that that's even a thing to do. This is why the actual conversation is about us as individuals. Because once you have a healthy mind, you go into all those scenarios with much better understandings. When you have an unhealthy mind and you feel like I got to get revenge, or I hate that woman and she did it, and you're just blaming each other, you can't see the answer anyway.
I mean, I agree that everyone should self-reflect, and I'm a big advocate for counselling. I think it's great, and I think we should all do that. But I do feel like, again, like perpetuating a massive disconnect. I think that men and women do need to be having these conversations. A lot of men and women that live together in harmony. But for instance, you know, like Jade, for instance, she's in harmony with her partner, but she still feels that kind of issue of dad envy sometimes, or feeling like, you know, so I think that there does need to be that kind of connect to in the conversation.
I think obviously for me, like I said, my Ziggy's 10 months, so it is in my household, particularly everything does fall on me because I am still breastfeeding, and he's very much like mummy, 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 and I am at home not working, so he's with me 24/7. And I think the issue when I talk about dad envy is more the fact that I don't feel like Ziggy's dad understands the mental load that I take on as a mother and how much I have sacrificed in terms of what my life was before to what it is now, and the fact that he doesn't have the same sacrifices. Even though he thinks that he doesn't, because he still has certain elements of his previous life. Whereas for me, I don't have that anymore. Not really.
So I think the two things, yeah, and this is my understanding of experiencing therapy, is that you have to find a way to make both of you right and not measure the impact specifically in terms of like how much it hurts you versus or impacts you versus him. But you're both right. But then the answer lies in what can he commit to, and hold him into account on what he commits to, on what's possible. But this is why I say having an intermediary is the most valuable thing. Because even with my awareness and knowledge, if you touch a particular button of mine, I lose all my training. It disappears. It's like, I'm hurt. You've upset me. Leave me alone. And so it's not as straightforward as like, you know, I said it and he heard me. Most of the time, parenting is quite a traumatic experience because you're reliving your childhood, some of the worst parts of your life where you had no control and agency. And so while you're going through this memory, like sometimes I see my son and I see me, this little 5-year-old doing all this thing, and I'm like, oh, he's happier than I ever was at 5. And then before you know it, 20 minutes has passed and he's looking at me, Daddy, Daddy, Daddy. And I'm like, I'm lost in the moment of how I feel rather than what's actually in front of me. And so having someone just to point in directions of like where to look and little tools of like, there was even one where like one therapist was just like, look, when you've got 2 young kids, you might be tired, you may stop having sex. The easiest way to do it is if you're in the mood, you put this sweet in a jar, and if there's 2 sweets in a jar, is guanin tonight. And you're like, bro, I didn't even think about that. Because sometimes the words may not come out, but just little tools that don't exist in our knowledge really, really help demystify our relationship, and it makes it a bit healthier and tolerable.
Oh yeah, I mean, yeah, you got a point. It's true, but obviously not everybody has those tools, and not everybody has a third party that can be
I would definitely say most
so,
people don't.
So there needs to be a way in which you can sort of work this out between the two of you.
My tip to anybody would be is if you can't afford the tools in this country, because it can cost a lot of money, is to do it abroad. Just find English speaking countries with like currency. So my therapist is in South Africa. It works out, I think, 35 to 40 pounds a session. It's like 20, like I think it's 20% of what it would be in the UK. You know, you just got to find a way to make it make sense for you, or just do it very sparingly when big things come up. And if you do it over time, these little tools will add up. And you just got to make sure you reconnect to them. But relationships are damn near impossible. I don't envy when people break up. I don't find that fodder. I don't find it gossip. I don't even play with that stuff because I know how difficult it is. Like, I've been there before marriage. I've been there post marriage. I see how difficult it is. It requires every fiber of your body to maintain a healthy dynamic. And then you add children, which you both love, but have a different relationship and understanding of the mission to, it takes a lot out of you. So if you don't have those tools to make sure you're connected, the whole thing will fall down anyway. And there's just too high a rate of people separating, breaking up. And people just think it's just like whatever. It's not whatever. It's a real thing. So even in the ending, you have to then reestablish what co-parenting looks like. You've got to recommit. It's a life partnership. It's not how long I fancy you for. It's like, I'm really doing this with you. Like that's the commitment that I made to Nina. I don't care what happens in the world. I may be furious for a period of time, but I'm coming back and we're going to figure this out because we have to make sure our children have a bloody healthy barrier. We both have been impacted by being single parents for different reasons, and we don't want that for our children.
Yeah. No, I agree with that completely. I agree with the therapy thing as well. But I do also think that there's other ways to do things other than just, you're saying that therapy is 20% of the price if you go to someone in South Africa, for example, there's a lot of people in this country that still can't afford £40 a week.
I know.
So
not
that's not the answer for most people. And the fact that you would say that's the answer, that's going to be quite difficult for some people to swallow.
No, it's the answer. How you come about the answer may have to be creative, and it may have to be a thing. But also, if you understand, like, some people invest more money in TVs than they do themselves. Like, for that person, I'm not critiquing you. If TV is your escape, it's your escape. You watch box sets, fine. But I'm saying, if your family's at stake, the price of £40 a month or 2 months or whenever you feel like you have a challenge is something that you can work towards and build towards. It is that urgent, because everything else happens better off the back of it. It's actually the foundation of all the unions, is that if you have a healthy relationship, then the stress in the house, the environment in the house, the opportunity and ability and desire to earn and create is much more improved. So, you know, it's like if you read, you get better results, but you have to do the reading first. You can't then say, I can't afford books. You find a way. That's how you get the answer. So I'm not dismissing the challenges that people face in affording things, but I've just given you one creative way to reduce the cost by 80%. But then you have to do some grit and figure it out. Borrow the money, whatever. Go to a religious center where it's free. Whatever the thing is, find someone who can help you. I
just had a flashback of, like, I don't know if you used to watch My Wife and Kids. Remember, like, every time there's a problem, Jay would be like, right, we're going to the therapist, and Michael Kyle should have to drag him or trick him to go. Like, how many men can we actually say, oh yeah, I booked therapy, we're going to go and have a couple, and they're going to be on it, you know? There's a lot of men out there who are just not even on communicating with you, let alone...
I think that's more of an issue with how people perceive therapy, though, and mental health, because that's another issue on its own. Whereas a lot of people see mental health and going to counselling or therapy or talking to somebody as if it's some sort of weakness, which that's not the case at all. Like, there's different people that are brought up differently. Some people are brought up doing therapy their whole entire lives because they feel it's so important, whereas other people, it's completely alien to them. And so when they hear therapy, they're just like, I don't need therapy kind of thing. And they sort of,
Look, man, people use a lot of therapy talk and psychological talk and things that trigger in. They say that shit and weaponize it as a way to just be an arsehole. I've seen it all, because once you do the work, you don't even say that stuff anymore, because the trigger is an idea of where you need to look for your life, about things you need to go and work on, regardless of what it is. That's where the work is. If I'm impacted by being left alone, then I gotta go do some work on that. I can't blame the people who left me alone, or when I was 7, I was left outside a shopping mall, and so it's the shopping mall's fault or my mum's fault. Just every time you project outwardly to blame for anything, it's not gonna work. It won't get answers. You won't find peace in any external understanding of yourself. It's all internal, but it takes work and real accountability, and it's painful and it's long. And it costs. And so I'm not saying that it's, easy and it's fun and like, if you just do therapy, everything will be okay. No, it hurts, and you go on a cycle, and then you get there, and then it actually does really change how you see the world, and it makes your life a lot simpler, and it makes your relationships a lot healthier. But before you talk about anybody else and, getting my man to therapy, this is where you have to be living with your consequences. What were your choices where you pick someone who hates the idea of self-improvement? That's a question that I have to answer. Like, if someone said that to me, I'd be like, I didn't even pay attention to the fact you don't even care about this stuff. That actually happened in another realm. And I was like, someone I'm working with, and they're like, I don't believe in therapy and healing. They said it with their full chest. I looked at them, I was like, this is what we do here.
That's crazy.
So guys, I need to wrap up because we've done over an hour. I'm always down to do a second one, by the way. We're actually taking a summer break from the Dope Black Dads podcast, but we will definitely do another one anytime you want on anything that you want. I really enjoyed this conversation. You've helped me see things so far.
I'd like a part 2. I really want a part 2.
Yeah, 100%. It's really good to get a male insight, to be honest. I've never really looked at it from that perspective. We always look at everything from a female perspective and speak to females about it. So it is good to hear your side of the story. You've made some very interesting points. So it was a good combo.
Thank you. I love you both. I really appreciate that. I feel like I've felt better. I've healed something in me today. And I really appreciate you being so open and honest, and also just challenging things that you didn't understand, because I think that's also a part of it. I have to be able to hear what you're saying and be able to come back if I feel like it's not clear enough, but also accept that I may have said something that may not be correct. And I've learned quite a lot from you guys today, and it means a lot to have this platform to be able to have this conversation. So thank you so much.
It was good. Yeah.
Aww.
We'll do it again soon.
Yeah. Bye, guys.
And so thank you guys for listening. I really much appreciate it. We'll be back next week with another episode. You can find us at Dope Black Dads on all social media platforms. You can also email me for a chat at hello@dopeblackdads.com. Thank you so much for listening, my brothers. I appreciate you all. We'll be back next week.
Oh, now they need to see my birth certificate. Honey, where do we keep the birth certificates?
Why?
Buying socks?
Socks. I'll check upstairs.
It's easy to be unsafe online.
You're the best!
Now it's easy to help protect yourself. Norton 360 with LifeLock gives you device security, a VPN for online privacy, and identity theft protection, all in one. Opt in to cyber safety. Save 25% or more off your first year at norton.com/news.
Switching to Geico is a good idea, especially when you consider everything.
First off, Geico makes it easy to switch. They have licensed agents available 24/7 online or over the phone.
But if it's so easy, you might start thinking everything is easy, even big wave surfing. And it's not. It's actually quite difficult.
Well, if you switch to Geico, you could save hundreds on car insurance. And you could keep saving by bundling your motorcycle, boat, and RV, plus your home or renter's insurance.
But saving money might lead you to make some questionable purchases, like a 20-foot feather boa. And do you know how hard it is to clean a 20-foot feather boa?
Well, they do have an industry-leading mobile app you can use to pay your bill, file and manage a claim, or add a new driver.
But when life gets a little easier, it makes you too confident. And you start calling everyone Ace. And you're better than that.
Well, Geico has a 97% customer satisfaction rating and has been saving people money for 85 years. It's hard to beat that.
But you're right.
Switch to Geico. It's obviously a good idea.